As the Wilson family's second daughter, I had to live in Jessica's shadow growing up. Our parents said she was flawless in every aspect, and she was 5 years older. I was taught this lesson at a young age, and it was repeated every day in both significant and minor ways. I was thrilled to show my parents that I had gotten an A on my arithmetic test when I was 6 years old. They were admiring Jessica's new dancing move as they were in the kitchen. Mother remarked, "That's nice, honey," without even glancing at my paper. "But look at your sister's pirouette." I silently made my way to my room after standing there with my test till the paper became limp in my palms. The pattern remained constant. I got her hand-me-downs while Jessica got new things from the mall. They got her the newest iPhone when she requested a phone at the age of 12. I was told to be thankful when I received Jessica's old flip phone on my 12th birthday. Dad used to say, "Your sister is going places," if I ventured to voice my displeasure. She needs these things for her future. My future didn't seem to require much investment. The same material was used to make our paternal grandparents, who had a swimming pool and a well-kept lawn in a posh area of town. Grandma Margaret always greeted Jessica with big hugs and enthusiastic squeals when we came, while I received a distracted pat on the head. She would exclaim, "Oh, Sarah," as if she had just realized I was there. "You've grown." However, Christmas when I was 8 years old truly made the point. Jessica opened a brand new laptop that she needed for her coursework. I received several pencils and a bag of notebooks. "We're being practical," Grandpa Richard said, grinning patronizingly. "This is more your speed, isn't it?" However, my mother's parents' home served as my own haven. On the opposite side of town, Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa George occupied a little ranch-style house. Something extraordinary occurred there. I was given the respect I deserved. When I spoke, they would genuinely pay attention. They put my artwork next to Jessica's on their refrigerator. When I visited, they prepared my favorite dishes because they remembered them. Jessica detested going there. She would gripe, "It's so boring. They don't even have a pool." And Grandma Eleanor never lets me choose what we watch on TV. She thus stopped coming, so I had them all to myself. I spent my afternoons with Eleanor and George's while our parents were busy escorting Jessica to her never-ending schedule of events. Ballet 1 month, horseback riding the next, and violin lessons she would stop after 3 weeks. They helped me with my homework, showed me how to bake cookies, and never once made comparisons between me and my sister. My parents made the ultimate decision on my value to the family when I was 10 years old. In what they referred to as a family meeting, the sentencing was set long before the trial even started, yet it seemed more like a trial. It was an October Sunday afternoon. The 6 of us sat down in our living room, Jessica and I sitting on chairs we had brought in from the dining room, both sets of grandparents on the matching sofas, and Mom and Dad standing by the fireplace. The air was thick with artificial significance. Dad started off by saying, "We need to discuss something serious," with his hands clenched behind his back like a CEO announcing layoffs. As you know, college education isn't getting any cheaper. I saw Jessica sit up straight in her chair and brush her flawless blonde hair. She was already rehearsing her future college student posture at the age of 15. I already knew where this was headed, so I sat still with my hands folded in my lap. Mom went on, looking at Jessica. "We've been saving since the girls were born. But with the current economy, well, we can only afford to send one of them to college." The subsequent delay was only for theatrical effect, similar to how TV shows create tension before revealing the clear winner, and it wasn't actually a pause at all. "Jessica will be starting college in 3 years," Dad declared. "She has demonstrated exceptional talent in a wide range of fields. We must encourage her to reach her full potential." He then turned to face me, his face displaying a mixture of contempt and phony pity. "Sarah, you're unique, my dear. You are more equipped for hands-on work. College isn't actually necessary for you." Dad's mother, Grandma Margaret, gave a hearty nod. The woman said, "Jessica is so gifted. She possessed natural elegance, according to her dancing instructor only last week. She must have the greatest education available." As I sat there, I felt less and less like Jessica, not gifted enough, not valuable enough to invest in. Now the well-known statement has just been formally sealed and stamped. But then something unexpected happened. Grandpa George stood up, his face red with anger. "This is absolutely unfair," he declared. "How dare you write off a 10-year-old child like this?" "George," my father started, but Grandma Eleanor cut him off. "If you won't support both your daughters equally," she said, her voice sharp as ice, "then we'll pay for Sarah's college ourselves." I watched as my maternal grandparents stood up together, a united front. "Sarah will have her chance at college," Grandma Eleanor announced. "We'll make sure of that." Then they walked out, leaving a stunned silence behind. Later that night, I was heading to the kitchen for water when I heard my parents talking in their bedroom. The heating vent carried their words clearly up to the hallway. "Mother's being ridiculous," Mom was saying. "Sarah's not college material. She can barely keep up in regular classes. They should give us that money for Jessica's education instead. It would be wasted on Sarah. She's just not bright enough." "I don't know why they're pushing this," Dad agreed. I stood there in the dark hallway, their words washing over me like a familiar bit of rain. But somehow, it didn't hurt as much as it should have. Maybe because I'd heard it all before, or maybe because I could still hear Grandma Eleanor's fierce promise echoing in my head. The years passed, and Jessica went off to an expensive private college while I finished high school. My parents never missed a chance to brag about their perfect daughter, constantly updating everyone about Jessica's amazing college experience, her excellent grades, and her bright future ahead. I focused on my own studies, spending most of my time at Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa George's house. Their quiet support meant more than all my parents' loud praise of Jessica ever could. Then came the day that shattered my parents' perfect vision of their golden child. I was in my senior year when Jessica came home from college, fresh from graduation. I was doing homework at the kitchen table when she burst through the front door, mascara running down her face. "Mom, Dad," she sobbed. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom dropped her coffee mug, dark liquid spreading across the kitchen floor. "Who's the father?" Dad finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. Jessica's next words sent Mom collapsing into a chair. "I don't know for sure." I watched my parents' faces as their perfect world crumbled, but it took them less than 5 minutes to reconstruct it. "Oh, sweetie," Mom rushed to hug Jessica. "It's not your fault. These things happen." "We'll help you raise the baby," Dad added quickly. "You can stay here with us." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious?" I said from my spot at the table. "She parties her way through college, gets pregnant, doesn't even know who the father is, and you're still making excuses for her." "Sarah," Mom snapped. "No, listen," I continued, years of frustration finally boiling over. "This is what happens when you spoil someone their entire life, when you never make them face consequences." "How dare you?" Dad thundered. "Your sister is going through a difficult time, and you're being cruel." Jessica burst into fresh tears, and Mom wrapped her arms around her protectively. "Get out," she screamed at me. "You heartless little." I didn't wait to hear the rest. I ran upstairs, threw some clothes into a bag, and walked out. Behind me, I could hear them consoling Jessica, telling her everything would be okay, that none of this was her fault. Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa George took me in without question. I finished my senior year living with them, focusing on my college applications. My parents didn't call, didn't check on me, didn't even show up at my graduation. But I had my real family there, my grandparents, beaming with pride. As I accepted my diploma that fall, I left for college in another city, my tuition paid by my grandparents, just as they'd promised years ago. I heard through the grapevine that Jessica had given birth to a daughter and was living with our parents. They were probably still making excuses for her, still treating her like their perfect child who could do no wrong. Life had a funny way of working out. While Jessica's brilliant future had crumbled, I was thriving. After graduating college with honors, I landed a job at a top consulting firm in the city. Within 6 years, I had worked my way up to senior consultant, earned respect from my colleagues, and even managed to buy my own apartment. My routine was comfortable. Challenging work during the week, weekend brunches with friends, and regular video calls with Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa George. They were proud of everything I'd accomplished, and that was all the family validation I needed. Then, on a regular Tuesday morning, my phone rang. I almost dropped my coffee when I saw Mom flash across the screen, a number I hadn't seen in almost a decade. Sarah, her voice sounded older, tired. We need your help. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in my office, still trying to process what she'd told me. Jessica had run away again, this time with some guy she'd met at a bar. She'd left behind her 9-year-old daughter, the niece I'd never met. Please come home, Mom had pleaded. We need to discuss this in person. That's how I found myself driving back to my childhood home that evening. The house looked smaller than I remembered, the paint peeling around the windows. Mom and Dad had aged more than I expected. Dad's hair completely gray now, Mom's face lined with worry. They led me to the living room, the same room where they'd once declared I wasn't worth sending to college. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jessica's been unstable, Dad began, staring at his hands. She never kept a job for more than a few months. Different men, different apartments. She always ended up back here. Mom wiped her eyes. We tried to help, paid her debts, watched Lucy while she worked, or said she was working. But last week she met this man, said he was taking her to California to become an actress. She laughed bitterly. She packed a bag and left, didn't even say goodbye to Lucy. We're drowning in debt, Dad admitted, his voice cracking. Credit cards, personal loans, all to keep Jessica afloat. And now I waited for the rest, watching them squirm uncomfortably on the couch that had faded from cream to dingy beige. We want you to take Lucy, Mom finally said. Adopt her, actually. You're stable, successful. You could give her a good life. We're too old for this. We can't start over with a child. I sat there, stunned. These people, who had written me off as worthless, who hadn't even come to my graduation, were now asking me to take responsibility for a child I'd never met. A child they'd helped raise for 9 years while enabling Jessica's chaos. After my parents went to bed that night, I sat in the kitchen with Lucy. She was nothing like I expected, nothing like Jessica. While my sister had been loud and demanding, Lucy was quiet and thoughtful, with serious brown eyes and a gentle smile. Do you like to read? I asked, noticing a worn copy of Harry Potter on the kitchen counter. I love it, she said softly, but Grandma says I read too much. She says I should do something useful instead. Over cups of hot chocolate, Lucy slowly opened up. She told me about her life with my parents, how Grandma sighed heavily whenever she had to make Lucy dinner, how Grandpa complained about the cost of her school supplies. They didn't hit her or starve her, but their resentment was palpable in every interaction. I spent the next week taking time off work, getting to know my niece. We went for ice cream, visited the local library, and talked about everything and nothing. Lucy was smart, kind, and remarkably resilient despite everything she'd been through. She showed me her Strata report cards that no one had ever celebrated, her artwork that never made it to the fridge. The decision to adopt her wasn't easy. I had a career, a life I'd built carefully from scratch. But watching Lucy try to make herself smaller, quieter, less troublesome, just as I had at her age, made the choice clear. The legal process was exhausting. For months, I gathered documentation, my financial records, character references, proof of stable employment. Jessica didn't contest the termination of her parental rights, didn't even show up for the hearing. Finally, after what felt like endless paperwork and interviews, I became Lucy's legal guardian. The day we packed up her room at my parents' house, they barely looked up from their TV show. "Don't forget to forward her school records," was all Mom said. Lucy flourished in our new life together. She decorated her room in our apartment with fairy lights and bookshelves, joined the school's debate team, made friends who came over for movie nights and study sessions. We developed our own little rituals: Sunday morning pancakes, evening walks in the park, marathon sessions of board games. Monthly visits to Grandma Eleanor and Grandpa George became a highlight for both of us. They doted on Lucy the way loving grandparents should, proudly displaying her artwork and report cards, remembering her favorite foods, listening to her stories with genuine interest. 5 years passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. Lucy turned 14, growing into a confident, compassionate teenager who consistently made the honor roll. My parents never called to check on her, never sent birthday cards, never asked how she was doing. But Lucy didn't seem to mind. She had found her real family. The phone call from my parents came on a Saturday morning. "We'd like you and Lucy to come visit," Mom said, her voice suspiciously cheerful. "We miss her." After 5 years of silence, their sudden interest set off alarm bells. But I decided to go. Lucy deserved to make her own choices about family relationships, and I didn't want to be the one standing in her way. The moment we walked through their front door, I understood why they'd called. Jessica was there, sitting on the couch like she'd never left. "Lucy," she cried, jumping up and rushing toward my niece. "Oh, baby, I've missed you so much." I watched Lucy's face carefully. She stood frozen, emotions flickering across her features: hope, fear, confusion, longing. Jessica wrapped her in a tearful embrace, while our parents looked on approvingly. "I've changed," Jessica announced, wiping her eyes. "I've realized what's important. I want my daughter back." The word "back" hit me like a slap, like Lucy was a borrowed sweater she'd finally decided to reclaim. "I'm living in Phoenix now," Jessica continued, "with Robert. He's got a great job, and we have a beautiful house. Lucy would love it there." "Do you have a job?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Jessica's smile faltered. "Well, not right now, but Robert makes enough for all of us." "And what happens if things don't work out with Robert?" I pressed. "What's your backup plan?" "Why are you being so negative?" Mom snapped. "Your sister is trying to do the right thing." "The right thing?" I laughed incredulously. The right thing would have been not abandoning her daughter for 5 years. The right thing would have been sending birthday cards, making phone calls, showing any interest at all in Lucy's life. "I made mistakes," Jessica wailed, "but she's my daughter." "Stop being selfish, Sarah," Dad cut in. "You've done your part, but Lucy needs her real mother now. You can have your own children if you want to play mommy so badly." I stared at them, stunned by their cruelty. These people who had failed not one but 2 daughters. They had enabled Jessica's irresponsibility for decades and had never once, in 5 years, asked how Lucy was doing in school or what her interests were. Now they thought they could just restart the cycle of dysfunction. "Lucy isn't a toy you can pass around," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "She's a person who needs stability and real love, not empty promises. Where were you when she had nightmares, when she was sick, when she won the school spelling bee? Where were any of you?" "You have no right," Jessica screamed. "She's my child." "A child you abandoned," I shot back. "A child you left with people who resented her existence. A child who deserved better than all of you." Lucy, who had been silent throughout this exchange, suddenly grabbed my hand. "We're leaving," I announced, squeezing her hand reassuringly. "And don't you dare try to contact us." Jessica's call came exactly a week after our confrontation. When I saw her number, I almost didn't answer, but something told me to record the conversation, a habit I developed after years of dealing with difficult clients. "Hey, sis," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I've been thinking about our situation, and I think I have a solution that could work for everyone." "What situation?" "Lucy, of course. Look, I know you've gotten attached to her, and I know you make good money at your fancy job. So here's the deal. Give me $150,000, and I won't sue for custody." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. "Excuse me." "It's really a win-win," Jessica continued casually, as if she weren't trying to sell her own child. "You get to keep Lucy, and I get enough money to start fresh. You can afford it with your salary." "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice shaking. "You're trying to sell your daughter to me?" "Don't be so dramatic. I'm just being practical. You want Lucy. I need money. Simple business transaction. She's your child, Jessica, not a used car." "Fine," she snapped, her sweet tone vanishing. "Have it your way. I'll sue for custody, and you'll never see her again." "How's that for practical?" She hung up and I sat there, clutching my phone, feeling sick to my stomach. The lawsuit came 3 days later. Jessica's new boyfriend had hired her a slick lawyer who specialized in family court. The initial filing painted Jessica as a reformed mother who had overcome hardship to create a stable home for her daughter, while portraying me as a manipulative aunt who had taken advantage of a temporary situation. In court, Jessica played her role perfectly. Tears streaming down her face, she told the judge about her journey of personal growth and how she'd found stability with her new partner. She claimed I had alienated Lucy from her, that I was using her daughter to prove I was better than my sister. On her behalf, our parents testified that they had only requested me to babysit Lucy for a short time while Jessica recovered. Dad even implied that I was trying to turn Lucy against her mother by influencing her emotionally. I was ready when I sat there and listened to their falsehoods while they spun their web of deceit. "Your Honor," my attorney said, "I'd like to submit an audio recording into evidence." As Jessica's words filled the courtroom, her face became pale. "I won't file a custody lawsuit if you give me $150,000. I need money. You want Lucy." Straightforward commercial deal. The ensuing hush was deafening. Jessica's attorney stumbled and attempted to protest, but the harm was already done. For the first time, our parents remained still in their chairs, making no excuses to accommodate their ideal daughter. Then Lucy got to her feet. She appeared older and more self-assured than I had ever seen her at 14. Her words, "I want to stay with Sarah," were rather explicit. My mom left me behind. I was picked by Sarah. My actual family is her. I saw Jessica's face fall apart, not because of true sorrow, but rather because she realized she had no more power. Our parents were unable to look at each other, and Lucy rose to her feet, at last unburdened by her mother's shadow. The judge made a prompt and clear ruling. I was granted complete custody of Lucy, and Jessica was prohibited from communicating with her daughter at all. Her effort to sell custody was deemed morally reprehensible by the court, who also said it was an obvious sign that she was unable to be a parent. As the decision was read, I saw Jessica sob in her chair. Without saying a word, her boyfriend, who had been seated in the rear of the courtroom, got up and left. I then learned that he had left her that same day because he was repulsed by her effort to sell her own child. In the courtroom parking lot, my parents attempted to apprehend us. "Sarah, please," demanded Mom. "We can work this out as a family." I gave them one final glance. "Relatives, neither of us has considered you family in years. What you did to me and what you let Jessica to do to Lucy is not fair." Dad insisted, "But where will Jessica go?" Robert abandoned her. There was no comedy in my laughter. Obviously, I'm still concerned about Jessica. There are certain things that never change. Jessica returned to her original residence with our parents. The golden child is still being pampered, forgiven, and not maturing. This time, however, she had lost something priceless as a result of her mistakes. Life continued. As though the burden of doubt had finally been removed, Lucy flung herself back into her studies with newfound vigor. She began taking photography classes, joined the school newspaper team, and expressed interest in pursuing a college degree in journalism. As we were preparing supper one evening, she asked, "You know what's funny?" Because my mother kept departing, I believed for years that I was flawed. However, I now see that she was the issue. She was only capable of loving herself. In awe of her knowledge, I gave her a firm hug. "You're the strongest person I know, kiddo." Grandpa George and Grandma Eleanor continued to be our pillars of support. At their home, Sundays became a revered custom. They preserved newspaper clippings of every item Lucy wrote for the school paper, boasted to their friends about her accomplishments, and proudly hung her photographs in their living room. Grandma Eleanor once told me, "You two saved each other," as we watched Lucy teach Grandpa George how to operate his new digital camera. "Just like George and I tried to save you." She was correct. I had discovered the family I had always desired, not the one I was born into, but the one we chose together, while attempting to give Lucy the upbringing I was never able to have. I still sometimes receive texts from my parents about Jessica's most recent drama, but I choose to ignore them. Lucy said she prefers it that way and hasn't spoken to her mother since the court battle. After burning, certain bridges ought to remain ashes. Lucy took first place in a student journalism competition held around the state last week. I reflected on the fearful 9-year-old child I had met years before and the self-assured adolescent she had grown into as I watched her get her prize. I reflected on broken cycles, healed wounds, and unrestricted love.
When I was on my own vacation, I met her. On the ferry, we were sat close to one another, and we later met up again at one of the island's few tourist attractions. She stated, "Let's get married," when we reconnected. Zach is my name. I work in a publishing company's editorial department and turned 32 this year. I enjoy my job and have no problem working overtime or through the night. Regretfully, the body is truthful. The responsibilities of my employment were too much for my stamina to handle. To make things worse, after a longtime editor retired, the workload unexpectedly rose, and I, a mid-level employee, was given more responsibility. I passed out at work one day. I had to stay in the hospital for around a week after the doctor diagnosed me with stress and overwork. Fortunately, my somewhat kind employer was able to send a notice that coincided with my release day, despite the frenetic nature of my work. It seems that I also needed a break, according to my attending physician. I had a 6-month vacation for the first time since I began working. At first unsure of how to spend it, I chose to travel to both the country's northern and southernmost regions. Alaska was the northernmost region that I initially captured. After that, I made my way directly to Key West, Florida. Catalina Island, the southernmost portion, is reachable from Miami via ferry, but the ferry was delayed by heavy weather, and I spent 4 days stranded there. The ferry could finally leave on the morning of the 5th day. The sea remained somewhat choppy. I took some motion sickness medication because I was anxious, even though I generally have a strong stomach. The ferry wobbled a lot, as was to be expected. In order to prevent seasickness, I sat by the window, pushed my forehead against the glass, and tightly closed my eyes. I saw that the woman seated next to me appeared ill around 20 minutes before we arrived at the island. "Are you all right? Do you want to take some medication for motion sickness?" I gave her a glass of water. Weakly, she said, "I'm fine." However, she didn't appear well at all. I offered her my window seat, thinking that could be helpful. She mimicked my earlier attempt to feel better by pressing her forehead on the glass. Her collar was slightly open, exposing her fair chest, and she was clearly uncomfortable. I turned aside awkwardly when I realized I was staring. I assisted her in getting off the ferry when we arrived at the island. As soon as she got off the ramp, she sat on the ground, unsteady and unsteady. According to her, the ground is the best, as she lay down there. "Are you okay?" I crouched next to her, worried. Still unsteady, she was able to sit up. "Many thanks. This time was difficult, yet you came to my rescue. Thank you." Her head was lowered courteously. The scent of shampoo wafted from her long hair as it flowed over her shoulders. She brushed the sand from her back and said, "Here on vacation?" I gave a nod. She said indifferently, "I see." I had to leave even though I wanted to stay and talk more. "All well, I'll leave then." "Are you certain you're good?" She responded with a full-faced smile. Regretfully, I parted ways with her at the harbor. I really wanted to talk more, but didn't have the courage. Feeling pathetic, I tried to enjoy the vacation. After returning to the harbor, I arrived at my reserved bed and breakfast. Catalina Island is small. You could cycle around the entire island. The next day, I explored the island by rented bike. Sadly, the weather wasn't clear, and the sea seemed rough. The ferry from Miami was likely canceled again. Because of this, there weren't many tourists, and it felt like time moved slowly. I headed for the southernmost monument of America. Passing through a winding, snake-like road, I saw the monument. There were no buildings around, just the sounds of waves, wind, and occasional birds. The wind was strong. I closed my eyes for a moment. When I opened them, I saw someone by the monument waving at me. My heart skipped a beat. "Thank you for yesterday," she shouted over the wind. It wasn't a mistake. The girl from the ferry was waving at me. I refrained from running and approached her slowly. "How did you know I'd be here?" I asked. "What other places are there to see around here?" she replied with a smile. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I thanked her as she introduced herself. "I'm Nancy." She handed me a package wrapped in newspaper. "This is for your help yesterday. You haven't had lunch yet, have you?" The package felt heavy. Not many diners are open now, right? I thought you might be hungry. Opening it, I found sandwiches. I felt a warmth in my chest, realizing she must have made it for me. "Thank you." I was getting a bit hungry, I said, smiling. She handed me a water bottle. We sat a little away from the monument and opened the lunchbox. Nancy casually picked up one of the sandwiches. They looked like typical homemade Southern American-style sandwiches. Nancy, munching on her sandwich before me, looked happy. "Is your family from this island?" I asked. She replied, "No." She seemed to have come relying on a friend living on the island. She said it had been a long time since she visited. That's when I noticed her ring shining on her left ring finger. My mood suddenly dropped. Making a lunchbox and waiting for me, it's easy to misunderstand. But she was flaunting evidence of being a married woman on her finger. It was proof that she had no interest in me. As my spirits dropped, the weather also started to deteriorate. Nancy was looking seriously at the increasingly rough sea. Maybe she was worried about the return ferry. If the sea gets rough, it will destroy this amazing scenery. I, who wanted to spend time gazing at the beautiful sea, wondered if Nancy felt the same and spoke up. Her response was something I didn't expect. Nancy said, "I hope it gets rougher," and smiled, hoping for a ferry cancellation due to rough seas. But I noticed her eyes weren't smiling. It felt like she had some secret, like she was afraid someone might come to the island by ferry. Maybe she ran away to this island. I stealthily looked at her anxious face. I wanted to say something to cheer her up, but no words came to mind. "Well, I'm going home." "It looks like it's going to rain," she said, staring out at the sea, now rough and turbulent. Nancy stood up and spoke those words. All I could do was nod in agreement, murmuring, "Yes, true." Despite Nancy's wishes, the next day was bright and sunny. The sea was calm. Almost instinctively, I opened my cell phone to check the ferry schedules. It seemed they were all running from the first trip in the morning. That someone whom she did not want might be coming to this island on the ferry. Thinking about it started to make me anxious too. To shake off the anxiety, I decided to go for a walk after breakfast. The sun was much more intense compared to yesterday. While wandering aimlessly around the island, I could hear a man and a woman arguing. Without much thought, I headed in the direction of the voices. The scene was in front of a small house. There was a flashy, flamboyant guy raising his voice at someone. Nancy was standing in front of him with a sullen expression. Apparently, this man was Nancy's husband. I realized this must be the unwelcome someone that she was avoiding. Something must have happened, and Nancy had run away from her husband. Facing her loud, furious husband, Nancy remained cold. I couldn't intervene in a marital spat, so I decided to quietly leave the place. "I'm telling you, I've had enough. I can't stand being hit or abused by you anymore." Nancy's voice, which was calm initially, was getting increasingly louder. Hearing her speak about being regularly abused, I stopped in my tracks. If her husband was violent towards Nancy, I felt I had to intervene. "Just shut up and come back home. You are making me chase you all the way out here." Her husband's shouting became louder and louder. I suddenly noticed a flashy woman wearing sunglasses sitting in a car that he apparently drove here in. She was watching the quarreling pair from the car, looking bored. "You came all the way here. What were you thinking, bringing your affair partner to take your wife back? Planning a romantic getaway on the side?" Nancy pointed at the car as she spoke. I see. The woman in the car seemed to be the husband's mistress. Things were starting to feel complicated. "That's it. Please, let's get a divorce." At this word, her husband reacted. His face turned bright red, and he tried to drag Nancy by her arm toward the car. "It hurts. Let me go. Are you planning to lock me up again? I'm not a pet. Let go of me. You should just wait for me at home and shut up. Don't think there's any more happiness in this world." I couldn't just stand there and watch. I had to step in between them and knock his hand away. He suddenly gave me a suspicious glare as I interrupted. "Leave her alone. She doesn't want this," I said to him, shielding Nancy behind me. He clicked his tongue. "Who are you?" I replied that I was her friend. I told him I had heard their conversation, and that it's wrong to forcefully take her home when she's refusing to go. "What the heck? Aren't you having an affair too? Do you think you are in a position to say anything about my affairs?" Apparently, he misunderstood me as Nancy's lover. He laughed, making fun of Nancy. Moreover, he began berating her. This is what you get with such a flirty woman. Don't speak so ill of her." I couldn't keep calm anymore seeing how he insulted her. He reached over my shoulder and grabbed Nancy's hair. Nancy, being pulled forcefully by her hair, almost toppled forward. "It hurts. Let me go." He pushed me aside and tried to take Nancy away. To be clear, I'm not the fighting type. I'm terrible at confrontations. But this was not the time to back down. I got up and took Nancy back just before she was made to get into the car. I quarreled with her husband next to the car. Nancy stepped in between us to separate us. "I am divorcing you." This time, it was my turn to be shielded by Nancy. With her arms spread out, she stared him down while shielding me behind her. "What will you do after divorcing? Marry this guy?" he said with a mocking tone. The next moment, Nancy turned around, smiling warmly at me. Looking into my eyes, she said, "Let's get married." I was taken aback, but the words that came out were, "Yes, gladly." I was astounded by our exchange, as if we were in a fast food restaurant. But it seemed my reply was the right answer for Nancy. She hugged me around the neck with a big smile, saying, "Thank you. Did you hear that? I've fallen for this man, so I want a divorce. I've never met such a kind person. I can't be with you anymore." Clinging to my neck, Nancy turned around and yelled back at him. I braced myself to be hit by him again. However, that moment never came. To my surprise, the high-handed man collapsed at Nancy's words. He sat down on the spot, his shoulders shaking. I thought he was trembling with anger, but to my astonishment, he started shedding tears. "Huh." I let out a dumbfounded gasp, staring blankly at her husband, who was now crying out loud. It's rare to see a grown man sob like that. While her husband was sobbing, Nancy watched him with a clearly disgusted look. Then, she swiftly pulled off the ring from her finger and threw it at the weeping man. "Think crying will get you forgiveness. You really never grow up," Nancy said, looking down at her husband with a contemptuous gaze. I later learned this was always his pattern. He imprisoned Nancy in the house, using violence to ensure she met no one. Then, when she lost her temper, he'd cry and apologize. He could have affairs freely, but when Nancy brought up divorce, he flew into a rage and became violent. Finally, he'd cling to Nancy, sobbing. No wonder Nancy wanted to escape. Even her husband's current fling, sitting in the car, was taken aback, seeing him bawl. "I remember when you were kind," Nancy said. "This is the end of the road for a selfish man who thought a gentle woman would forgive everything." At Nancy's words, her husband's crying became even louder. "I'll have my attorney contact you about the details." "Don't ever come near me again," Nancy declared. Leaving her sobbing husband behind, she tightly gripped my hand and started walking. When I looked at her profile, she was firmly closing her mouth and staring straight ahead. "Hey, did you really fall for me?" I asked Nancy, who was walking silently. Nancy answered, "Yes." I felt the temperature of her hand rise slightly at that moment, so I didn't ask any more questions. She probably wasn't lying. I was sure of it. "Hey, let me say it too," I said. She stopped and looked up at me with upturned eyes. Her gaze was wavering, and she seemed a bit anxious, as if afraid of being rejected by me. "I've liked you since the first time we met," I said. I'll never forget Nancy's face turning red up to her ears. It's been 10 years since then. Nancy's fierceness back then was something else. I still shiver just thinking about it. We're visiting Catalina Island, the place where we first met. After so long, it brings back memories. Next to me, Nancy, with my wedding ring shining on her finger, smiles and says, "This place brings back so many memories." I honestly told her that seeing the ring on her finger back then had completely bummed me out. Nancy teased me with a playful laugh. "What happened to the ring you threw away?" I asked. "That ring," Nancy replied. It was embedded in the ground the next day. I found it and stepped on it. She laughed mischievously, saying it might come out if dug up. Immediately after that event, we hired a lawyer and proceeded with the divorce process. Her ex-husband wouldn't agree to the divorce, so it eventually came down to mediation. I wanted to marry her right away, but the divorce took about a year to finalize. I officially proposed to her the night the divorce was finalized. A year later, we happily got married. It felt like a long journey, but now, blessed with 2 kids, we are a happy family of 4. We have our occasional fights, but that's part of the charm. I think I'm usually the one who gives in during our arguments. Hey, Mom, Dad. Over here, over here. Our children call us with loud voices. Our daughter takes after me, and our son is the spitting image of Nancy. Their personalities are also similar, which makes us laugh. We walk towards our kids, hand in hand. Okay, time for a quiz, I said. The word quiz excites the kids. So, what kind of place is this? I asked. My question was met with voices of dissatisfaction from the kids. It's too easy and not interesting, they complained. Then, our daughter snorted and answered, "Don't play dumb. It's the southernmost part of America, right?" I told her with a composed face, "No, that's not right." Once again, there were boos from the children. "This is where your mom first let your dad taste her homemade lunchbox," I joked. My daughter hit my knee in frustration as I spoke teasingly. We didn't know that the children unanimously voiced their complaints. Next to them, Nancy, looking a bit guilty, was smiling. I sensed she had a secret. Then, scratching her head, Nancy said, "Actually, that lunch was made by my friend." A truth I learned after 10 years. The kids rolled over, laughing hysterically. The beautiful memory shattered, leaving me stunned for a moment. So this is what they mean by truth is stranger than fiction. Come to think of it, Nancy was bad at cooking. I hadn't noticed that about the lunchbox until now. I guess I was just head over heels for her. "Hey, were you in my class in high school?" She seemed like she might have been in my class, and I ran into her when I got to the hotel. "Eric, hold on a moment. Are you merely a recent high school graduate? Even so, could you help your wife with that? Are you certain you're up?" She mocked me as a potential customer and appeared unaware of my current predicament. Since I was pressed for time, all I really wanted was for her to carry out her duties. The upper class frequents this hotel, which is a prestigious, affluent establishment. It isn't really, where recent high school graduates like you belong. Grad or not, it makes no difference. This hotel is where we have business. Furthermore, you are not in charge of selecting your guests. Yes, it is. We do turn away low-class high school graduates. It may be an investment of a lifetime for you. Is that the manager's policy? My wife finally spoke up after being silent up until that point. I had been laughed at, but she appeared much more indignant. Yes, it's the manager's policy to refuse service to anyone less than a high school graduate. She smiled as she spoke, little realizing that this would be the beginning of the end for her. "Please call the manager to the owner's suite right now." She became pale at that point. Eric is who I am. I married Katie a few years ago, and we find ourselves in a bit of a bind at the moment. Just the 2 of us are lost. We traveled to this area for work, but since it was our first visit, we wound up getting lost. This is troubling. You don't seem overly concerned, but we are in a tight spot. We won't arrive on time if we continue like this. It was our intention to go there immediately upon departing the station. Our destination is a well-known, venerable, upmarket hotel in the neighborhood. We won't arrive at our appointment in time at this rate. It's strange, as my wife stated. Why are we unable to locate it? My spouse is feverishly looking up locations on her phone and scanning through the map. There don't seem to be any taxes here, despite my own search. Maybe I could use an app to hail a cab, if I could locate a landmark. As soon as I realized it, I pulled out my phone. I understand now. The map was inverted. My wife said, we were going in the wrong direction. All right. We can never get there if we choose the incorrect route. Whoa, were we both viewing the map inverted? Were we never this poor at following instructions? I've got no excuse. Assumed we could find it simply because we had been told it was only a 10-minute walk from a big station. We appear to be less adept at directions than we initially believed. We grinned wryly at each other. Let's head back to the station. Yeah, we'd better take a taxi this time so we don't get lost again. Sounds good. We walked back after grinning miserably. Eric, let's play. Katie, what do you want to do? Beside our current residence, Katie and I were childhood pals. Morning, Eric. Good morning, Katie. Do you want to stop at the variety store on the way back from school? Let's head there. Yes, this month is also your birthday. I might get you something. That's sweet, but I was planning to get you a birthday present too. Then let's both buy gifts. Yay. It's accurate, you too. Detours are okay, but please exercise caution. Sure thing. Got it. We even had the same birth month and were the same age. We played together, went shopping together, and attended school together. Since the day we were born, our grandparents and parents have been close friends as well. Katie, welcome back. I'm home. Eric. Mom, I'm back. Both of you had some snacks at home today, okay. We went to each other's places on a regular basis. Dave, let's play. Yes. How ought we to proceed? Tag? Come on, let me play too. As if they were our own parents, we would play with each other's dads and eat snacks made by each other's mothers. Happy New Year, Ronald. Marie. Indeed. Cheers to a good New Year. Eric, here's a gift for you two this New Year. Congrats. Together, let's head to the church service for the New Year. Sure, let's do that. Yay, that sounds good. Obviously, our grandparents were included in this. We addressed the members of each other's families by their first names. Katie, you're really absent-minded. Eric, you're pretty laid back too. Yes, you're correct. Let's have these together later. I located Katie's favorite candies at the convenience store and bought them. Are you serious? What time did you leave? Do you recall that on the way, I stopped at the convenience store? Oh, that time I got a drink from a vending machine that I thought you might enjoy. Then let's have it with the sweets. We considered one another to be our closest, most compassionate friends, and I couldn't fathom my existence without Katie. There's a chemistry between Eric and Katie. Do you agree with that? I'm not certain. I'm not sure honestly. You're correct. You two seem like a great match, though maybe that's just because you're together all the time. I can't possibly imagine the two of you apart. People often remarked that we had the same aura despite our similar upbringings. We'd always been naturally close, even as young children. Living in separate homes was akin to having an extended family. I could only see her standing next to me for that reason. Hey Katie, how are you? Though it may come as a surprise, I can only envision myself with you. Will you accompany me out then? Are you serious? Naturally, I will. I'm happy that few. Though I was still anxious, I assumed you would. It's true that you sounded uneasy, which is unusual for you. Therefore, I suppose it was only logical for us to consider getting married when the time was perfect. Yes, Katie, I want to spend my entire life with you. Will you then marry me? Hey, you're trembling in your voice again. Naturally, I will. It's true that I felt anxious during the proposal and confession, but that's just the way it's always been. Katie and I having been together since we were infants. I owe Katie a great deal for continuing to be a strong supporter of my work even now. After that, we got a taxi back to the station. The cab driver laughed heartily when I hurriedly explained our position. We eventually reached the classic luxury hotel, which was our target. Oh, Eric, that's not good. There are just 10 minutes remaining. Yikes, let's hurry to the check-in. Yes, let's do that. We dashed to the front desk. My name is Eric. I apologize for being so impromptu. Can you help us out quickly? Eric? Are you the Eric that I knew in high school? Her voice caught my attention as I looked up. This is Marissa. We attended the same secondary school. She was a classmate, it seems. Her name tag and clothing suggested that she was employed by the hotel. Ah, Marissa. Yes, I seem to recall you from our time in school. Long time not seen. Is this Katie then? Do the two of you still get along? Do you consider yourself married or something? That is astonishing, really. She seems to be aware of Katie as well. That would make sense if she had been a fellow student in high school. But everyone in the foyer turned to watch Marissa laugh uncontrollably. We both scowled, uncomfortable beyond belief. It's not appropriate to laugh so hard over it. Please just do your job. Come on, a little laugh is fine. It's not acceptable. Here, we seem to be in a rush. She didn't appear eager to continue with the check-in. Marissa gave her eyes a playful narrowing. Erica, are you really only a recent high school graduate? Are you truly able to stand by your wife in that? Are you certain you're all right? Hey, that's rude. It's fine, Katie. Katie tried to oppose Marissa's mocking tone, but I stopped her. It's impossible to dispute, is it? What are recent high school graduates? Janitors at best. Oh. Maybe building laborers, perhaps. Either way, nasty and dirty, Marissa yelled as she carried on her tirade. The upper class frequents this hotel, which is a prestigious and luxurious establishment. It isn't really where recent high school graduates like you belong. Gior or not, it makes no difference. This hotel is where we have business. Furthermore, you are not in charge of selecting your guests. Yes, it is. We do turn away low-class high school graduates. It may be an investment of a lifetime for you. Marissa continued to sneer and try to push us away, ignoring anything I said. Is that the manager's policy? Katie, who had asked not to speak, finally piped up at that time. Yes, the management has the policy of not serving anyone who is not a high school graduate. Marissa mockingly answered her cool-headed question. Please go. I was familiar with Katie. I watched her activity silently. Marissa continued to smirk. Well, if you grovel and agree to do as I say from now on, maybe I won't turn you away. Hey, why are you laughing now? Are you crazy now? Oh no, Katie started laughing, so I automatically put my palm to my forehead. Marissa gave us a perplexed expression. Haha, really? You say the funniest things. When Katie is upset, she frequently bursts out laughing. What are you trying to say? It is verifiable. Reality. All right, I'll make sure you know what you did. Marissa blurted out in fear as Katie abruptly stopped laughing and became serious. Next, Katie spoke a chilly "Oh, hello. It's Katie here." Disregarding Marissa's runaway, Katie pulled out her phone and dialed someone. Kindly request that the management visit the owner's suite immediately. I will also quickly be there. Domestic. Supervisor. The suite of the owner. Marissa cast a bewildered glance at Katie. I suppose I should introduce myself sooner. This hotel is owned by me, Katie. It's good to meet you. Katie gave Marissa a lovely smile. In actuality, Katie's family is wealthy and possesses a large number of real estate properties. Katie remained involved in her family's business even after we were married. In due course, Katie acquired multiple hotel properties. Eric, The hotel we're going to is this one, right? Yes, that's right. Excellent, excellent. This is the other motel that my father recently gave me the keys to as its owner. This is an ideal time to do an inspection. My work initially required us to visit, but we also intended to perform a surprise inspection. The owner's suite was then shown to us. I'm terribly sorry for what happened. Several suit-clad men and Marissa were apologizing in the owner's suite. I've heard of Marissa's impolite actions. I apologize sincerely. Ted, the manager, was one of them. Ted, is it true that your policy is to refuse guests who are high school graduates or less? Achieved it. How precisely were you going to verify that? Katie asked Ted a pointed question. What? That is not possible. Who made such a statement? That is absolutely not my objective. Ted ran away, obviously shocked. Standing next to him, Marissa cast a pallid glance down. Are you letting the front desk staff decide who gets to stay? No, that's absolutely not the case. But that's exactly what she said. You are aware that our guests interact with us at the front desk. First, don't you? Obviously, I get it. However, you don't seem to get that the hotel will look bad if this is how her staff acts. It is your duty as manager to select and develop employees who won't make our visitors uncomfortable. What are your thoughts about that? As a hotel staff member, I apologize. With a pallid face, Ted was the focus of Katie's lesson. Ted seems to be stuck with his constant apology routine. That's enough, Katie. I chided myself in the end after attempting to calm her down. Stay, out of this. Ted seemed to notice me at last when I made an interjection. He gave me a surprised look when he saw me. Oh, you are? Aren't you Mr. Wilson? He came running over to me. Marissa looked up at this, as she had been looking down. The press conference is about to start. That reminder reminded us of the purpose of our visit to this hotel, a shoot. With a quick peek at my watch, I whispered, shoot. I was engrossed in Katie's rage to the point where I forgot I was meant to be at this hotel for a press conference. I play chess professionally. After turning pro in high school, I've been winning since, and now I was going to go up against the title of master. We had the press conference. Today. Tomorrow is when the bouts begin. Oh no, I wonder what the press will write if Mr. Wilson is unable to attend the press conference due to the hotel situation. Ted and the others began to lose our minds. We have to move quickly and escort him to the venue immediately. Our conversation isn't over yet. Eric is escorted to the location by just one person. Shall the rest of you and I had a lovely, lengthy conversation. Katie smiled, alarmingly gorgeous, as she said this. Yes, you there. Please show the way. Yes, ma'am. The selected staff member led me out of the owner's suite. With cheers in my heart, I made my way to the location, saying, "Hang in there, staff member." I eventually made it to the location. My tour guide came back, her eyes welling up with tears. I watched him leave and went into the arena where Master Smith, my opponent for this bout, was already giving me the cold shoulder. The master title belongs to Master Smith, a well-known player in the chess community. In addition, he serves as my mentor and my role model. I was excited to put him to the test once more. The scowling Master Smith instantly softened his demeanor. He laughed and remarked, "Eric, late again," to which I replied with a smile. My wife and I were gazing at the map upside down. He made a joke, "Ha, you two are as clueless as ever." I rubbed my head, embarrassed by my mentor's laughter. Master Smith had previously taught Katie chess as well, but Katie gave up, stating, "It's not fun, because I always lose to Eric." "Are you Eric?" "Yes, that's me." "I know Pete rather well. Go ahead and give chess a shot." "Yeah, I'll give it a shot." Master Smith first became my tutor because of his previous relationship with Pete. You two still have a great relationship. What a wonderful mentor-mentee relationship, really. Isn't this match between a mentor and prodige what has the chess world watching? It will be wonderful to see the collision of like ideas. It was widely known that Master Smith and I were mentor and protege. The press conference moved along at a leisurely pace. Thankfully, it concluded satisfactorily. Phew, glad that's over. You're still so laid back, aren't you? Is that so? Master Smith stated this as he observed me. He groaned and said, "But when it comes to the match, you transform into someone else." I'm not really sure how I comprehend it. Is Katie the same as well? I laughed and Master Smith said, seeming a little annoyed. In fact, Katie turns into a rigid entrepreneur and is typically more forgetful than I am. However, much like before, she has a strict side to her, especially when she's upset. I bet Katie is still lecturing someone at this very moment. She was so cool earlier, but also kind of terrifying. Your eyes become more focused and you show amazing concentration when playing chess. You play chess in an aggressive, relentlessly offensive manner. Well, I do often get that kind of feedback. That fluffy personality of yours comes up with moves that are unexpectedly tricky, honestly, making it difficult to play against you, said my mentor, Master Smith. But has he forgotten that I learned this particular chess strategy from none other than Master Smith? I basically learned my chess-playing technique from him. I'm excited about tomorrow, he remarked, holding out his hand. Yes, me too. I firmly shook his hand after taking it. We gave each other a firm handshake. A best-of-7 series, the Master Championship matches travel to hotels and inns across the country. Every match is 8 hours long, spread out across 2 days. Even though these are professional matches, the media, including the sponsoring newspapers, tend to ignore them. That's most likely the reason Marissa was unaware that I was a professional chess player. Master Smith, my mentor, has given me advice and recognition for having a solid sense of the game since I was little. Pete was correct. Eric, you've got good judgment. Would you like to follow me officially? Will that make me better? Yes, with your potential, you'll improve rapidly. I believe that. Pete had stated that Eric would undoubtedly emerge as John's choice. Through him, a relationship was established. Though it took me multiple tries to pass the professional tests, I made quick progress. I went to neighborhood public schools for middle and high school, and I was so focused on chess that I did poorly in both academics and athletics. I suppose I was a pretty inconspicuous student. I used to target you for bullying because you were so unimpressive back then. Erica, really? Because of how natural you are, it's possible that you were unaware of the bullying. Marissa was with me when Katie and I got back together. Hello, you pessimistic one. You're not even good at studying. You're dark. What does that have to do with? How come? You too. Eric isn't as willing to annoy you anymore. Looking back, I can say that there was a group that frequently upset me, but I didn't really notice it at the time because I was more focused on chess and Katie's support. It was most annoying that you ignored us. Marissa claims that I wasn't purposefully ignoring them. I was just not aware of them. Hey, I heard that despite being a senior, Eric hasn't made a decision about his future yet. Nearly everyone has already reserved a spot in college. Eric is simply unique, isn't he? My ambiguous career path felt out of place in high school, where the majority of students were concentrated on getting into college. Katie, listen, I finally passed a pro exam. Are you serious? That's fantastic. Eric, I know you've been working hard. Yes, and there's something else I want to tell you. In the meantime, during my final year of high school, I passed the pro exam. Although I went on to become a professional chess player, most of my classmates just knew that I dropped out of school. Given that I didn't actually inform anyone but Katie, it makes sense that they were unaware. It was also at that time that Katie and I formally began dating after my confession to her. I'm sorry. I wanted to apologize, but can we just stop this right now? I was about to play an important match. Kindly keep me out of this. I see. I'm telling you to get retrained, Marissa. Additionally, you will be suspended for a while. Be careful not to reveal your face to us. Understood. For the time being, it appeared as though Marissa had conceded, but in reality, nothing had happened. When the match's first day came to a close the following day, I was going to head back to my room. The next move should be, no, that would be counted then maybe. Eric. Marissa, who was meant to be suspended, was there when I ran into her on my road. I wanted to apologize so much. Could we go out to dinner later? I'm currently occupied. I casually replied, just leave me alone, my thoughts entirely focused on the game of chess. Master Smith is a powerful man. I have to concentrate on the game tomorrow. I had no idea that you were a competitive chess player. How important is the Master tournament? Eric, you're so awesome. I've always known that you're unique. You know, I've really liked you since we were little. I was harsh to you back then because of this. Hey, do you even think I'm speaking? Hi there. Marissa caught me thinking about chess and touched my arm. Would you please let go? Put an end to it. Katie stepped in. She moved in between Marissa and me, forcing her to release her grip on my arm. Oh, Marissa said, appearing briefly frightened by Katie's presence. She angrily snapped back, don't interfere. The one meddling is you. It's a crucial moment right now. You were meant to be on suspension, right? You weren't supposed to reveal your face, right? Are you able to comprehend that? That is unimportant. In addition, chess professionals make a lot of money, right? Are you not just after his money? Marissa's prodding appeared to have irritated Katie. Are you serious? Here, I am the proprietor. I work for my own money, Katie told Marissa in a clear-cut and forceful manner. Then give him up to me. What? Katie and I both silently conveyed our perplexity at her unintelligible remarks. Absolutely not. What even appeals to you about Eric? In what number? Numerous things. Could you enumerate them? All right. So that's, since we were young, I have been observing Eric. I'd adore every aspect of him, both positive and negative. I will always love him, regardless of whether he ends as big, bald, or impoverished in the future. Marissa seemed a little surprised by Katie's strong statement. My entire body began to warm up in the interim. Katie, though that is a little awkward, I'm still thrilled. At that moment, my face was probably beet red. ****. It is impossible for me to consider dating anyone else because I have a significant other. All I could think of was Katie. Nobody else could possibly be on my side but her. For me, she is the only one. I will always love her and nothing else, no matter what happens in the future. Hey, you two. As I said this, I had Marissa's full attention. Stupid couple. Perfect for each other. You idiots. After saying these things, Marissa stormed off. All we could do when left alone was giggle together while our faces remained red. Shall we head to our room then? Yeah. Master Smith prevailed in the opening match of the Master competition. It was rather annoying, to be honest, but it's not done yet. That concept caused me to change my perspective. Manager Ted came to say goodbye, saying, Mr. Wilson, I'm truly sorry for what happened at the Chout. Again, he expressed his sincere regret. Marissa resigned from her job today. Oh, I only asked for her suspension, not for her to be fired. Ted said, It was her own decision. That foolish couple. I will never prevail over Katie. All I want is for everything to go away. Let Marisign, please, Marissa had pleaded. Listen, your management determines the employee's quality. Katie reminded Ted. As the manager, make sure you properly re-educate your staff. She smiled, a little intimidating. Yes, sir. I'll return soon to do another examination. After Katie said that, we started to head home. A very interesting trip. Thinking back on the trip, I never would have imagined getting into this much difficulty the day before the match. I laughed. To myself, it was very intense. But I also got to hear my wife speak words of love and witness. Her acting like a savvy company owner. The excursion was worthwhile. I now have to put forth my best effort and win the following match. 1 week later. Good job. Oh, I'm very grateful. I had managed to concentrate well enough to finish the Master tournament. After the match with Master Smith, pay close attention. I believe I did a really good job. Tomorrow, our parents want to celebrate for you. Are you serious? I take it that there will be a sizable crowd once more. Yes, that's right. Our mothers reprimanded both of our parents for taking time off work to see the Master tournament. Hey, I can see that. They must be anxiously awaiting our return at this point. Maybe. As we laughed, we both remembered our parents. How about we go on a trip after things settle down? Well, it makes sense. In fact, I had intended to return to that hotel to do an inspection. I'll adapt. To your timetable the next time because it was for me the last time. I'm grateful. By the way, I was overjoyed by your loving remarks at the time. Well, give up. The things you said at the moment made me pleased as well. Again, we both flushed. We just can't get used to this, even after spending so much time together. How frightening the owner and her father both are is truly unsettling. Was Pete a terrifying person as well? Jess, I have been a guest at this hotel since the days of her father. Although quite rigid about business, he was also incredibly nice. At that moment, I noticed a hint of her father in her. Similar to Pete, That's how you also get during chess games. It's something I hear a lot. In any case, Pete is like a second father to me. Is that so? Eric, what are you talking about with Ted? Just discussing things about you and Pete. I see. It seems Marissa had a difficult time getting out of that hotel, by the way. The stories had gotten around, so she was unable to get work at other hotels. Furthermore, she made approaches to a number of guys who appeared to have steady jobs, but she was rejected each time and eventually fell for a shady man's scam, which left her in debt. She now has to balance a hectic life with duties she used to despise, like construction and cleaning. After some time, I had learned of Marissa's predicament from a former classmate. She eventually asked for assistance from her former classmates before vanishing from view. Katie, please stay with me forever. Obviously, we will always be together, even when we grow old together. We shook hands and vowed to work together in the future. After a few years, 2 children were born into our family. Since he was a little child, our son has dedicated himself to his studies with the goal of replacing Katie. Our daughter, on the other hand, is a chess enthusiast who says she wants to learn the game and compete against me. And Master Smith is training her very fervently, too, with the hope that she will outdo me. Katie and I exchanged a smile as we watched them. You've given me a lot of support. I'm grateful, Katie. Really. Erica, I should be the one saying thanks. I was inspired to work hard after witnessing your hard effort. I'm so happy you're here. Me too. It's a tremendous pleasure to have you. I have loved you in the past. I love you now. and I always will. Me too. Mom and Dad are being lovey-dovey again. Red in the face, we were both mocked by our kids. I'm sure you two will meet someone you want to spend the rest of your lives with. Stay close. And lend each other support. All right. I wish to stay in close proximity to my beloved Katie. Naturally, in addition to our kids.
My name is Taylor. I am a single mother who went through a lot of hardships to raise my son, Eric. Many single mothers out there have supportive families. I thought I had one too, but turns out I was wrong, and I found out the worst way possible. Thankfully, I was able to get back at the people who tried to mess up my and my son's life. My ex-husband, Carl, is an abusive crap. The very thought of him fills me with disgust. There was a time when I was head over heels in love with him. Things went downhill after I married him. Carl was a great boyfriend, but as a husband, he was a nightmare. He was controlling and slowly started to become abusive. I stayed in that marriage for over 8 years. It was mostly because he had manipulated me and baby trapped me into being with him. At first I thought that my son deserved a father, so I didn't leave. However, things took a turn for the worst one day when Eric was 5. Carl started to hit me very hard. My poor son saw me in pain and tried to stop his dad from beating me. Carl was so deep in anger that he ended up pushing Eric to the floor. That's what it took for me to leave him. One call to CPS and the police was enough to keep Carl away. However, he was determined to get back at me. He said, "You think you can run away from me, Taylor? That will never happen. Sooner or later, I will have you and my son back in my house. You just wait and watch. We are getting a divorce, Carl. There is no way in hell that I will allow you near me and my son again, even if we divorce. I'll find a way to take Eric. I am his dad and I have rights. He will be in my home and so will you. Mark my words." Carl's behavior and his violent history made me very paranoid. My son was extremely traumatized and had to go to therapy to deal with his issues. A long court battle later, me and Carl were finally divorced. I didn't end things there. I literally moved away near my parents and sister to be safe from Carl. I even got restraining orders against him. It was the most horrific time of my life. Carl never knew where I had moved. He could have guessed, but he didn't have my exact address. Being near my parents and sister made me feel safe. However, my parents were not really that supportive of my divorce. They said, "Was it really necessary to get a divorce? You two could have attended therapy and talked it out. It's not a big deal." "Yeah, poor little Eric had to lose his dad over your problems. That's so unfair. He must be devastated not being able to see his dad. Are you serious right now?" "Carl used to beat me up, Mum, and he had put his hands on Eric as well. My son was only trying to protect me. How can you not see what a monster Carl is?" "Mom, Dad, you two need to be a little sympathetic about Taylor. She has been through a lot. You have no right to make her feel guilty. She did the right thing. But first, Mum and Dad used to try and talk to me about letting Eric see his dad. However, I never allowed it. My parents were never happy with my logic. They always said, "Why don't you let Carl visit Eric? He must miss his son. How would you feel if I wasn't around when you were growing up?" I know I would have been devastated. "Taylor, you lived and prospered in a household with 2 parents. You can't be so selfish with Eric. He deserves the love of his father. Soon he will start resenting you for not allowing his father to stay in his life. What are you even talking about? Eric is absolutely scared of his dad. He begs me not to go near him again. He has no intentions of ever seeing his dad again, and neither do I. You must be influenced by all the violent stories you have told about Carl. You should not have dragged Eric into your issues. He learned to be afraid of Carl from you. That is ridiculous, Dad. If Carl was such a good man and a loving father, he wouldn't have hit me in front of him. In fact, he should not have hit me at all. No matter how hard I tried, they would never agree with my decision. However, as time passed, they seemed to have accepted my decision. They were very close to Eric, and were doing a great job being good grandparents. Eric also developed a close connection with them, and with his Aunt Blair. I think part of the reason my parents stopped pushing me was the fact that I was financially helping them. Me and Blair sent monthly allowances to our parents because Dad doesn't have a good job while Mom doesn't work. Money might have been a reason why my parents eventually went silent about the matter. Me and Eric were thriving in our new home. Eric joined a local school while I was working a good job in an office. Things were going great, and I was happy surrounded by family. However, I had no idea that my loved ones could be so horrible to me. My second biggest betrayal in life happened just a year after I left Carl. I was all set to go on a business trip to another city. I couldn't take Eric because there were no provisions to keep children at work. So, I was in a rut, wondering what to do with Eric. That's when my mom and dad suggested the plan. They said, "So, I heard you will be leaving for a business trip soon. Me and Stuart have been thinking about babysitting Eric for you. We can stay back at your house and take care of both Eric and the house. Are you sure about this? I mean, Eric can be a little handful, plus you will be leaving your apartment empty. Wouldn't it be a hassle? It's only a matter of days, so I don't think it will be much trouble. Plus, we love Eric, and he loves us too. I'm sure he will be thrilled to spend these days in our care. Yeah, the two of us can stay here and babysit for you. Your house will also be safe when you go on this trip. It's like you will get 2 benefits in one. Okay, if you are insisting so much, I will leave Eric and my house with you too." I agreed to let them babysit Eric and stay at my house until I came back. I was feeling pretty satisfied with the arrangements since I trusted my parents blindly. I now know that I made a huge mistake. I shouldn't have trusted my parents at all. My business trip happened only a week later. I flew out at night after kissing Eric goodnight. I had to leave a day earlier to prepare for a meeting with big clients the next morning. I called my parents and Eric after reaching the hotel. Everything appeared to be normal. However, I had no idea what was going to happen at night. When I was in my hotel preparing for my meeting for the next day, I got a call from Blair. For some reason, it made me a little panicky. I thought something was wrong at the house. I picked up the call feeling nervous. Blair said, "Hey, Taylor, have you already flown out for your business trip?" "Yes, Blair. I came here yesterday." "I had a late-night flight. It won't be a very long trip." "Have you left Eric with our parents?" Taylor: "Yes. What's wrong? They are staying at my house with Eric. They take such good care of him, and he loves to be around them." Taylor: "I don't know how to say this, but I think you made a mistake. You should not have left Eric with our parents. They are planning something, and I don't think you will like it." "What do you mean? Tell me everything right now. You're scaring me." Taylor: "I think Mom and Dad will try to make Eric meet with Carl. They've been against your decision to take out the restraining orders. You know how they hate it, your divorce and everything. I have a bad feeling they will take Eric to Carl." "What the hell are you saying? No. Mom and Dad can't do that. I'm sure there has been some misunderstanding. They didn't approve of the divorce, but they weren't siding with an abuser." "I know you trust them a lot, but you need to be careful. If you need anything, I'm right here. I want you to remember that." "Thanks, Blair. I'll be careful. Don't worry." Honestly speaking, Blair's words were ringing in my head. It did make me very uneasy, so I decided to call my parents and check up with them. I said, "Hey, Mom, can you hand over the phone to Eric? I want to talk to him a little. I'm missing him a lot. I can understand, Taylor. Hold on. I'll put him on the phone. Mom, are you there? Hi, Eric. I'm just checking up on you. Is everything okay? Are you having a good time? Mom, I need to tell you something. Grandma and Grandpa have called Dad. Oh my God, my phone is about to die. I'm so sorry, Taylor. Now I have to put it in charge. Why don't you call back later? Eric is fine and playing with us. You don't have to worry about anything. Take care. Bye. Something made me really suspicious about the way Eric tried to talk to me. What was worse was the fact that Mum snatched away the phone and didn't let Eric complete his words. My head was reeling from the situation, so I decided to check the security camera footage. I didn't have any cameras in the house, but I did have them outside. Lo and behold, in my driveway was my freaking ex-husband's car. I was shocked. I remembered the footage and saw the car was in my house. My freaking mum opened the door for him. After looking at the footage, I was immediately enraged. I was also scared for Eric and my own life. Carl was not supposed to have my address. Hell, I have a restraining order filed against him. He should not have been around my son. I was furious and called my parents straight away. Don't worry. I also recorded the call, I said. Mom, why the hell is Carl at my house? What the hell is going on? Who permitted you to let him in? God, you need to relax, Taylor. Carl is not here. Why would you even say such a thing? Mom, I can see his car parked in my driveway. Did you forget that I have security cameras outside? I freaking saw you open the door for him. For a while there was a pin-drop silence on their side. Neither of them spoke a word to me. I could tell that I had made them nervous. However, nothing had prepared me for what happened next. They said, Look, I know you're upset at Carl and us, but you're being very unreasonable. You need to cut us some slack. Yes, I'm very disappointed in you, Taylor. You cannot separate a son from his father. Eric needs Carl in his life. You're not being a good mum. Please tell me you are joking. Carl literally abused me physically. Hell, he even hit Eric when he tried to save me. How can you allow Carl back into his life again? I have a restraining order against him, for God's sake. That was a long time ago, Taylor. We must forgive people. He has changed. Your stupid restraining order was causing a lot of problems. Yes, so I and your mum decided to take matters into our own hands. We gave Carly our dress since you won't. We reunited father and son. They are so happy together. Mom, Dad, I will give you exactly 5 minutes to kick Carl out to the curb. If you don't, there will be consequences. Don't threaten us, Taylor. We are your parents. You are 3,000 miles away. What will you do anyway? Carl will stay here as long as he wants. We are planning a picnic tomorrow. Now, I am hanging up before you talk any more nonsense. Mom said that and simply hung up on me. I literally gave them 5 minutes to kick Carl out. When 5 minutes passed, his car was still in the driveway. I had had enough at that point. Norose, I felt scared and betrayed. I knew that I had to act fast, so I quickly called law enforcement. I gave them the rundown of the situation and told them to arrest Carl. I also told them to take Eric from my parents and give them to Blair. The police acted fast and reached my house within 5 minutes. Staying near a police station was the best decision of my life. I saw them confront my parents and Carl through the CCTV footage. My mum and dad looked panicked as they went in to arrest Carl. Mum called me and said, "Taylor, what is wrong with you? Did you call the cops on us? How could you do this? You know Carl could go to jail." "He will go to jail, Mum. And you will too if you don't leave my house right now. I don't want you and Dad on my property again. I have called Blair. She will come and take Eric. You will never come near us again." "How dare you, Taylor? You are a horrible, horrible woman. I wish you were never born. You cannot kick us out and take our grandchildren from us. We won't let that happen. Good luck with that, Mum and Dad. The police will stop and arrest you if you do anything stupid. They know that Eric will go with Blair. You can't do this to us, Stellar. We have grandparent rights. We will sue you. Good luck trying to fight me in court. It'll be fun to see the judge react when she realizes that you brought an abusive man into my house despite a restraining order. You'll be laughed out of court. Before either of my parents could reply to that, the police came out with curling cuffs. He was escorted out to the police car and put in the back seat. It gave me relief and satisfaction to see him back with the police. Then the police started to talk to my parents. They were flustered, and my dad was starting to shout at the cops. I'm sure they were trying to argue about Eric. Right then, my sister Blair showed up. She showed the cops her ID and took Eric with her. My parents tried to stop her, but the police intervened and kept them at bay. Then the cops stayed behind until my parents gathered their stuff and left the premises. My sister locked my house and took the keys from my parents. My parents tried to call me and scream at me about the whole situation. However, I didn't receive their calls. They then started to text me with some weird messages. I recorded all their texts because they were getting really interesting. They said, "What you did today, was it? Right, Taylor. There will be consequences of this. You have no right to take Eric away from us, and Carl and I can't believe you are my daughter. I hate you. You won't be able to keep us at bay, Taylor. You are a working woman. You won't be with Eric all the time. We will get visitation from the court, and then we will take Eric away from you. One CPS call from us can take Eric away from you. If you think you are smart, we are much smarter than you. We will call CPS and tell them some bad stuff. They'll place Eric in our care, and he'll never return to you. That will never happen. Eric will stay with me, and I will do everything in my power to keep him safe. We know where Eric goes to school, Taylor. We know your address. We'll find a way to be with him. You cannot stop us. Yeah, if you act crazy, we will take him away from you. You will never see him again." My parents are stupid. Yes, I can see now that they are horrible people, but they are also very stupid. They still expect that everything will go their way. They had no idea what I was going to do. Only time will show them. He had already made a huge mistake teaming up with my parents. He would suffer as well. I quickly completed all my work and returned home as soon as possible. Blair kept Eric safe, and he was staying at her house until then. "Mom, you came back." "I thought you won't come back for me." "Eric, what are you saying? I went on a business trip. Of course I was coming back." "Dad said you had left me, Mom. He said that he will take me away with him. He showed me pictures of his house and everything. I was scared. I didn't want to go with him. Eric, listen to me. I will never let Carl take you or even be near you again. I'm not going anywhere. I promise you, son." I spent a long time consoling Eric and making sure he was okay. Apparently, Carl was talking about me abandoning him and how he was there to take Eric away. I was freaking pissed at Carl. CPS did get involved and heard Eric's account. They recommended therapy, and Eric is already going to one. I have also signed up for group therapy for me and Eric. Our therapist is a great woman and really helps us get over our trauma. All the documentation of crimes committed by Carl was used by my lawyer in court. He was charged with attempted kidnapping and violating a restraining order. He's actually looking at jail time. I'm currently in the process of making Carl terminate his rights to Eric. My son deserves a good dad and not an abuser like Carl. My lawyer is very skilled, and we are hoping for a smooth process. As for my parents, they did try to sue me for grandparent rights. The judge took one look at my code history and the texts they sent and dismissed the case. I went a step ahead to get restraining orders against them. The judge approved that straight away. Currently, I have shifted with my son to a different state. I got a promotion at work and took a higher position in a different city. It helped me move away from my parents. Blair does visit me from time to time. She has even cut off contact with our parents and is thinking of moving to my city. My parents are having a hard time with money since me and Blair have both stopped helping them out. They were forced to look for extra jobs. Lawyers' fees drained their savings and have made them really financially unstable. Meanwhile, me and my son are thriving in this new environment. I have no intention of ever contacting my parents or allowing Carl to traumatize my son again.
I'm Nina, and I want to share a story about my family's kindness and unexpected challenges. Growing up wasn't always easy for me, but I've always believed in lending a helping hand. You see, growing up, my family didn't have much. We always struggled to make it to the end of the month. I had 2 other siblings who were younger than me. As a result of my parents constantly being busy with work, I was responsible for my siblings. Living that close to poverty, I had developed this need to help those in need around me. So I studied hard and managed to build a life for myself. Since I was the first of the kids to start working, I wanted to make my siblings' lives easier. Every time I got paid, I sent money back home. This allowed my parents to not work so many tiring hours and spend time with my siblings. Finally, as my siblings reached the age where they were allowed to work, my family's situation improved. Because I wanted to send money back home, I made sure to pick up extra hours and work really hard. As a result, I managed to get promoted to the manager of my section. The position came with so many benefits and a good raise. Finally, I found myself actually relaxing and settling into living comfortably. Now that I finally had some time on my hands, I began to actively look out for a partner. I had never really had the time to think about things like relationships. Of course, I'd been on a bunch of dates. I'd had my first kiss and all that, but no one really wanted to be with someone who had no time for them, which I honestly wouldn't want either, which is why I began to take dating seriously. Now I wanted to love and call someone mine. I signed myself up on some dating apps. Through one of those apps, I found this handsome man called Jake. Through his profile, I could honestly say that we seemed like we would make a perfect couple. Jake was a lawyer and had a very goofy sense of humor that reflected in all his pics. Honestly, that's exactly what I was looking for. I knew that I needed someone who could make me laugh when I was wound too tightly. We matched and carried out conversations via text every single day. Eventually, we decided to meet up for a date. That one date led to many more dates. My intuition about Jake was absolutely right. He was the perfect match for me. He had this way of making me laugh when I was upset, and he somehow always knew when I needed a hug to make me feel better about a bad day. That being said, he knew when to be serious and pursued his career very seriously. He worked really hard, and I saw it in the way that he always had stories to tell of the various cases he was working on and the praises he got for his work. I was proud that I was dating a man who was as amazing as Jake. It's for that reason that I said an enthusiastic yes to Jake when he proposed to me. After 2 years of dating, we got married after a year of being engaged. It was a blissful ceremony where we were surrounded by our beloved family and friends. Since both of us lived on the opposite side of the country, we were meeting a lot of each other's family in person for the first time. The only family members we had met before were each other's parents, so it was a great opportunity to bond with each other's family during the wedding. It was during that reception that I properly met Jake's sister, Stacy. Stacy was 9 years younger than Jake. While everyone else accepted me warmly, Stacy was a little harder to win over. I had approached Stacy while I was sitting at a dinner table by myself. "Hey, Stacy, why aren't you out there dancing with everyone else?" "I don't really feel like it. This whole event is kinda lame." "Is everything okay?" "Oh, everything's just peachy. I've got so much better things to do than be at this party." "Okay, well, is there something else you'd rather be doing?" "Well, if it weren't for you getting hitched to my special golden child of a brother, I could have been applying to universities and figuring out my own life. Oh, what's this against Jake? Seriously, have you seen the way everyone in your family worships the ground he walks on? The accomplishments, the praise? It's like I'm invisible. I'm somehow supposed to do everything on my own because that's how Jake did it. I get it. It's tough when others' successes seem to overshadow your own path. You do, yeah, to some extent. But listen, no matter what, you deserve support and guidance. I'll help you find the best universities and figure things out." "Really? You do that?" "Absolutely. If you're willing, we can spend more time together researching and planning." "That sounds amazing. I can't believe you'd offer to help me, especially with all the expectations around Jake. You're your own person with your own dreams. I want to help you achieve them. Nobody should be left in the shadows." "Thank you, Nina. Seriously, no one's ever been this supportive. It means a lot." "You're welcome. I'll be here every step of the way, no matter what challenges come our way. Your journey matters just as much." The way Stacy looked so lost and sad tugged at my heart. I was reminded of my own siblings, so I wanted to help Stacy. After Jake and I enjoyed our honeymoon, I kept my word and helped Stacy find the best university for her. During this time, the two of us became very close. We became best friends and hung out even more often, considering Stacy's university was only an hour away. As the years passed, Stacy found herself a boyfriend in college. Right after they graduated, Stacy and her boyfriend got engaged. Stacy came over to Jake and mine's place the weekend after she got engaged to break the news to me. She nervously told us that she had something important to tell us. "Stacy, is everything all right? You seem really nervous." "Yeah, don't tell me you're pregnant now." "Seriously, no, I'm not pregnant, Jake." "Oh, thank goodness. You guys really thought that?" "Well, you did seem a bit anxious, and when you said you had something important to tell us, our minds jumped to the worst-case scenario. You two always assuming the worst. Oh, bad. Anyway, I wanted to share some good news with you. I'm engaged to my boyfriend, and we're planning to elope." "Oh, wow. Yeah, we were wondering if you could be our witnesses." "Well, that's quite a surprise. Are you absolutely sure about this decision?" "Why wouldn't I be? You don't want to be our witnesses?" "It's not that we don't want to support you, Stacy. It's just, well, you're quite young and getting married is a big step. What's wrong with being young? Are you saying we're making a mistake?" "We're not saying you're making a mistake. We're just concerned because you're only 21. Life has so much more to offer, and people change a lot in their 20s. We want you to have the best chance at a successful and fulfilling marriage." "So, you don't believe in us. You're not happy for me." "That's not true. We care about you and want the best for you. We're just worried about rushing into something so serious. Give yourself some more time. If your love is strong, waiting won't weaken it." "You know what? If you can't be happy for me, then I don't need your approval. I'll find someone else to be our witnesses. We're not trying to upset you. We just want you to make a decision that's best for both of you." Well, clearly you don't trust us to make our own decisions. I thought you'd be happy for me, but I guess I was wrong. Stacy, please don't leave like this." She stormed out of the house. Jake and I tried to call her and text her, but none of our calls or texts would go through. She had blocked us. We were beyond upset at the way Stacy had treated us. Up until then, every time she did or said something rude, we chalked it up to her being a teenager who didn't know any better. But at that time, she was every bit an adult who knew what she was doing. For months, we kept trying to contact her in hopes that we could rekindle our relationship with her, but it didn't work. We found out through Jake's parents a couple of months later that not only had Stacy gotten married to her boyfriend, but she had also gotten pregnant. Jake was beyond upset that Stacy was holding such a stupid grudge against us for simply being caring. He was upset that his sister didn't come to tell him that he was going to be an uncle. I comforted to him after the call with his parents. "You know, Stacy's still quite young. Maybe she was just trying to get our support because we're the closest family she has." I get that, but it feels incredibly hurtful that she didn't share something so important with me because of some silly grudge she's holding. I know, it's hurtful. She's like a sister to me, even if not by blood. But maybe she was just overwhelmed herself and didn't know how to approach it. It's not about her not telling me, though. It's about feeling left out of her life. I know, darling, it's a complicated situation. But remember, you're going to be an uncle. Once the stress of the pregnancy is over, she might change her approach. I wish I could believe that. It's just hard to wrap my head around all of this. I know it's hard. It's okay to feel hurt and confused. Let's just wait it out a bit longer. Once the baby comes, maybe things will shift. I hope you're right. I want things to get better between us, but it's hard not to feel hurt. We'll work through this together, just like we always do. Stacy's going through a lot too, and her emotions might be all over the place. I know, but it feels like we're on the outside looking in. We'll find our way back in. Family can be messy, but it's worth the effort to mend things. Within the next few months, Jake's parents told us that Stacy had given birth to a baby boy. Jake and I were overjoyed to hear the news. We couldn't believe that we were an uncle and aunt. We were still hurt that we couldn't visit Stacy, but we decided to give her some time to heal before going over to meet her. 2 weeks after Stacy gave birth, Jake's mother called Jake. Jake didn't pick up, so she called me. I picked up the call and was greeted by crying. I immediately recognized the voice. It was Stacy. "Nina, I don't know what to do. Everything's falling apart." "Stacy, are you okay? What happened?" "My husband, he left us. He abandoned me and the baby." "What? Why would he do that?" "He was scared of being a father. He just disappeared after a week of me giving birth. I thought he'd come back, but he never did." "Oh my God, Stacy, I can't imagine how hard that must be for you." We went to bed together one night. The next morning, he wasn't there. That itself was weird because I was up at 6 a.m. to feed the baby, and he usually didn't wake up till late. I waited the rest of the day for him to come back or reach out to me, but he never did. I tried contacting everyone, but no one knew where he was. He ignored my calls and texts. When I threatened to involve the police, he told me he wanted nothing to do with us. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Are you in a safe place?" "I'm at my mom's place right now, but I can't keep living here. I still have the place we rented, but I can't afford it on my own anymore. I don't know how I'll manage food for me and the baby." "Don't worry, I'll help you. We'll figure this out together." I don't deserve your kindness. I treated you and Jake terribly, and now you're here for me. You're my sister, Stacy. Family. I don't want you to suffer. We'll get through this. We all make mistakes, and right now, you need support. I'm so sorry for how I acted before. I never should have treated you both like that. We're here for you. People can change, and you're realizing your mistakes. We'll help you get back on your feet. Thank you. I really appreciate this. It's going to be okay. We'll take things step by step, and I promise you won't have to go through this alone. I don't know what I'd do without you. We're family. We'll face this together. From then on, I began to send Stacy $2,000 every month. It was a small dent in mine and Jake's finances, but both of us wanted to help Stacy out. After all, she was family. Our arrangement went on for a year. In that year, Stacy had gone back to work. The extra money that Jake and I sent her helped her immensely. However, her gratitude slowly shifted to entitlement. Whenever I was just a little late to send her the money, Stacy would call me and demand that I send her the money immediately. Initially, Jake was very upset about it. He talked to me about it. I'm starting to think Stacy's reverting to her old ways, he said. What do you mean? It's like she's using us again, like she's taking advantage of our help. I get what you're saying, but we can't just abandon her, especially when she has a child to care for. I know, but I wish she'd show some consideration, just a little gratitude. I understand your frustration, but remember, I'm not planning to support her forever. I'm waiting for her to stand on her own feet. Thank God. I was worried this would go on forever. We're doing what we can, but she needs to learn and grow too. We'll be there for her, but she has to meet us halfway. Good. I like that. Then something unpredictable happened to me. While I was driving back home from work one day, my car got T-boned by a drunk driver. By the time the emergency services arrived, I had lost consciousness. I was lucky to survive, but I had suffered severe injuries. I was in a coma for a week. When I came to, I was too weak to do anything. I was stuck in the hospital for a whole month before I was deemed fit to leave. I walked out of the hospital with a broken collarbone and a broken leg. I was just grateful to have survived. Jake was my rock during this time. He never left my side a single day that I was in the hospital. Even when I got back home, Jake refused to leave my side. I had to force him to sleep because he was too terrified to lose me again. I also forced him to go back to work. My company gave me time off and allowed me to work from home when I felt well enough to work. However, since I missed a month of work, I wasn't paid my full salary, so I wasn't able to send Stacy her allowance. Stacy had found out that I had been discharged a week after I got out. She called me. Where is my money for last month? What do you mean? I'm talking about the payment you were supposed to send me. I'm due that money. You know I was in a car accident, right? I was in the hospital for a whole month. Yeah, I know. That's why I gave you another week after you got out to pay me. Are you serious? How entitled are you? Do you even know how much I've suffered in the past month? You don't know what suffering is. I have a baby to take care of. I can't afford to wait around for you to slack off on your responsibilities. Stacy, I've been through hell. I wouldn't have been able to send you the money even if I wanted to. Excuses, excuses. You're just proving that you're not really family, like I always knew. Family is supposed to support each other in hard times, not demand money without understanding. And then I hung up the call. I couldn't believe the audacity that Stacy had to call and demand money. I wasn't even obligated to help her. I was only helping her out of the goodness of my heart. I didn't mind any of Stacy's entitlement earlier, but to not have gotten any concern when I had almost died was beyond enraging. A couple of minutes after I cut the call, Stacy texted me. She said that she had always known that I wasn't part of the family and that me not sending her the money proved it. She then told me that she was going to show everyone my true colors and that I would live to regret my decision. When Jake got home from work that night, I told him about Stacy's calls and texts. Jake was furious. He couldn't stand Stacy's behavior. He tried to call Stacy and chew her out, but he quickly realized that he had been blocked. I was emotionally drained from the day, so I told Jake to just let it go. A couple of days later, I was rudely awakened from an afternoon nap by a phone call from my boss. She had told me that the company had received multiple tips stating that Nina had been financially abusing a family member and forcing them to stay at home. Now, this was a big violation of company policy because I worked for a company that worked for family welfare. I assured my boss that I wasn't doing anything of the sort. My boss told me that she needed to see proof. Until further notice, I was suspended from work. I didn't know what to think. Who could be spreading such stupid lies about me? In the middle of the crisis, my phone rang again, and this time it was Jake's mother. She yelled at me for treating Stacy poorly and neglecting her when she needed me the most. I couldn't even get a word in because as soon as she was done ranting, Jake's mother cut the call. This went on the entire day, where multiple family members either called or texted me to inform me of how disgusted they were with me. I managed to get a hold of Stacy. Stacy must have unblocked me. I tried to call her, but she didn't pick up, so I texted her. I asked Stacy if she had been spreading lies about me. Stacy replied that she had told me that she would make me regret not sending her the money. I tried to angrily text her back, but realized that I had been blocked once again when my messages didn't go through. When Jake got back home, I showed him the text messages and filled him in on everything that happened that day. I've had enough of Stacy's behavior. I'm going to make her pay for all of this, I said. I know, Jake. Her lies have seriously hurt us, my job, our reputation with family. It's all at stake. There's no stopping me now. I can't let her get away with this, and I won't. I'm with you on this, Nina. I'm tired of her entitlement and manipulation. We've shown her nothing but kindness, and this is how she repays us. I've been thinking, what if we take legal action, a defamation case against Stacy? Absolutely. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. With you on this, Jake, let's do it. It won't be easy, but it's the right thing to do. We'll get through this together. We always do. Let's stand up for the truth and put an end to her lies once and for all. Over the next few weeks, Stacy was summoned to court for her case. She tried to text and call Jake and me, but this time we were the ones who blocked her. She tried to approach us during the trials, but we tactfully avoided her. In the end, the judge ordered Stacy to pay me $200,000 in settlements. Stacy broke down crying in the courthouse. I did feel bad. I knew that this was the only way for Stacy to learn from her mistakes. Stacy tried to spread more misinformation about Jake and me, but we had sent everyone the records of the case and informed them of what had happened. Nobody sided with Stacy, and in fact, many of them refused to be associated with her for fear that they would be mistreated by her too. I also sent the proof of my innocence to my company, which got me back to my job. Jake and I truly felt sorry that we had set Stacy back by a lot by suing her, but it was the only way for Stacy to learn. In the end, Stacy's actions led to her own isolation and bad luck. Jake and I continued our journey together, bound by the lessons we had learned and the love that had always guided us. This incident showed us that even in the face of adversity, choosing kindness and standing up for the truth could lead to a brighter and more fulfilling future. Thank you for listening to me till the end.